Two and one. Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I got a great question. I got a word that you probably have some blind spots about, and we're going to unpack that today. And I have a simple question, but it gets actually pretty deep, and we're going to go into that today. And the question is, what habits do you have? And a lot of times, if you're like me, I was thinking when that question got posed to me, I was thinking, man, what negative habit? I was thinking negative. I went right to the negative. Do I eat too much? Do I drink too much? Blah, blah, blah. And this actually is going to be about some really positive habits that you may or may not have. Hopefully, by the end of today's show, we're going to find a couple new habits for you to jump into. And I'm honored to be hanging out with David Ray Fullmer. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. You are the founder of a and developer of a cool company called Becoming Seven. So fill us in on what is Becoming Seven.
So becoming seven is like the ultimate uh recipe for life rhythm, for the vibration as we walk through life and kind of navigate the decision making that we need to. And like you said, identifying habits, good ones and bad ones to keep, ones to change. And so I found I was at a young age exposed to Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and my dad was one of the first 30 employees. So fortunately, I got to travel the country, and I was in in these rooms with Fortune 500 CEOs, and I was usually in the back stealing coffee and donuts. I like to say, but it rubbed off on my mind, and I was really interested. Introduced to Jim Rohn, Earl Shoaff, Napoleon Hill, Marcus Aurelius at a young age, um, and I would go to these personal development seminars earlier in my early entrepreneurial career, when I was trying to make changes in my life, and there was always four steps to this and five steps to that, but you would forget them, or you didn't know when to implement them, and everyone's culture is so different. But one
Sure,
culture, yeah, one culture for humanity that's all the same is Monday through Sunday. Like
sure.
in our brain tracks have this experience, and our emotions are actually different on Monday through Sunday. Each day we actually experience different emotions, and I knew that our internal vibration and our the music that we make through our lives and the way that we walk and interact is like a song. And I was like, man, it's like, how do I get something? And so when I stumbled across Monday, that more people have heart attacks from 8 a.m. to noon on Monday than any other day, and it wasn't based on their ethnicity, their cholesterol level, their weight. It was like my mind, it was like ripping my brain off, and I was like, wait a minute, there's something here. And
Sure.
so it was a humanity thing. And then I said, I've been to all these personal development things, and I love them, and there's so much good information out there. But how do we memorize things? We attach a brain track to a new principle. And
Okay.
we already have the brain track Monday through Sunday. And so through trial and error and my career as a businessman and entrepreneur, I figured out and studied over 15 years developing and understanding. It took me 15 years to get all 7 days,
Yeah.
and now I have literally, I feel like I have cracked the code for humanity to live in rhythm and to create the most beautiful life. And it's remarkable. It's changed thousands of lives, and I love it, and I just want to share it, and that's my gift, and God gave me that talent, and that's why I'm on earth.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to unpack this today. I got to challenge you on something though, David, because I watched one of your podcasts that you were on and a guest on, and you said you were in the back of the room trying to get out of the room when you were younger. So, I got to believe when you were first in that, was it like for you, was it like you were excited about it? You were bored
Oh,
with
no
it?
way. I wanted to leave. I just wanted the coffee and donuts and get
Yeah.
out. But
All right. There you go.
so many times, we feel like we can, and I use this example as like we think we can hang out with people that are not going anywhere because
Yeah.
they're our friends, and it's
Sure.
not rubbing off on us. Well, I'm not going to drink. I can go to the bar, but I'm not going to drink. But I have a problem with drinking, and maybe I'm not going to drink 80 days in a
Yeah.
row, but it's that 81st day I drank, I broke my commitment, I crashed my car, I took someone's life.
Right.
So yeah, I was trying to leave the room, but my dad was there and I was 12 years old and I couldn't. And some maybe I
Where are
did
you
a
going to
few
go,
times.
right?
And it rubs off on us. So
Sure.
the energy in the rooms that we consume, there is this, we take that energy with us. And
Yeah.
so we need to make sure that wherever we are, we're present, but also that we're in an environment for growth and creativity.
Well, and I think a lot of people listening right now, David, entrepreneurs, business owners around the world, they're so focused on, working in their business. They're not really developing themselves. They're not really thinking about that. So when you think about these daily theme practices, it obviously is something now for you that comes natural. When you run into people that are interested in this, is this something really new and like off the charts for them, or is it something they align with up front? Kind of walk us through for people that aren't unfamiliar with what goes on, like Motivation Monday versus Forgiveness Friday. You have these two bookends, so to speak. You know, are each let's kind of walk through first of all what those 7 days are, if you can share those with us.
Yeah, so I'll give a quick one. So Motivation Monday, we talked about heart attacks. Why would someone have a heart attack? They don't have their full purpose in life figured out because their body is saying I don't have a reason to live. And not every
Right.
heart attack's like that, but
Yep.
those that vibration inside of us needs to understand, no, I have something to live for. And the human body's been proved that when it has laser focus on something it's going and it wants to achieve, it can overcome unsurmountable odds.
Okay.
And so Motivation Monday is my why I am on the planet Earth. Basically, that is what am I going to do with this short little glimpse of, of time.
Yep.
Tuesday is tracking Tuesday. The average person has 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are negative. 90% are the same you had the day before, the day before, the day before. So in B7, what we do is we work on getting you out of the hamster wheel and you become an avatar and you watch yourself and you listen and watch. God gave you two eyes, two ears, and one mouth. It's the day to be quiet and watch yourself and how you interact and what I'm doing. It's complete accountability and awareness.
Sure.
Wednesday. Wednesday's Whisper Wednesday. It's a day of no electronics in the morning. The first half of the day is spent in an organic environment. Why? Because I need to hear in my heart the whisper in the wind. I need to listen to the spirit, that still small voice. If you were to interview airline pilots, first responders, people whose job and life surrounds keeping people safe,
Yeah.
they will tell you story after story. Well, why did you make that decision? Oh, well, it's like that one pilot that landed the plane on the river on the Hudson. What, like, how do you make a decision to land a plane on the Hudson River? Well, all
Yeah.
these first responders and pilots, they'll tell you it's just I felt this whisper.
Yeah.
Well, our intuition is like lifting weights. And we're just inundated with this social media, all this crazy stuff. We don't take time. We're organic. We go into the woods, we go to the beach, we go to the mountains, we go to this special place and listen to our heartbeat and get intuition and inspiration. So that's Whisper Wednesday.
Sure.
Thursday is a day of gratitude. What day every year is Thanksgiving? Thursday.
Thursday.
It's
Yep.
Thankful Thursday. An army of sheep, okay, led by a lion will always defeat an army of lions led by a sheep.
Hmm.
Okay. And the answer to that dichotomy is gratitude because it's next to attitude.
Sure.
If I have an attitude of, I've lost my business, I've lost my wife, my kids don't talk to me, I can go on and on. And if I say, but I'm good at this, I can do this. And use your lens to understand you are not out of this game until you are dead and gone.
Sure.
Everyone can make changes today. Everyone can pivot. Every moment is a hinge point for a greater view. And that is what the attitude is about. Then we move on to
Awesome.
Friday. We're high on gratitude. What in our blood memories as a culture is Friday? Well, it's this massive weekend we're going to this beautiful weekend. We don't have to work. There's a party, there's a dance, there's a new movie, there's dinner, there's you know what I mean? So our internal vibration is super positive and high. And that's one of the most incredible superhuman attributes is forgiveness. Because some of us are just holding on so tight. We don't realize that forgiveness is the gift for the forgiver. And I am an eagle. I need to fly. I live here in Hawaii, and a plane to the mainland ride, and the exact same plane, same pilot, same people, same fuel. The
Yep.
way back is an hour difference. Why? Because of a headwind and a tailwind, because the
Sure.
vibration of the plane, the stress on the plane is keeping it from getting there at 530 miles an hour. It's an hour difference.
Sure.
It's crazy. And it's the
Yeah.
exact same thing in my life. If I'm holding on, I'm slowing my progress down. I'm slowing me building my business. Like you said, it's not what's happening out there, it's what's happening in here,
Yeah.
which is going to get us to where we want to go. And so forgiveness is so powerful. And there's four major things in forgiveness that the four biggest things in forgiveness are: we forgive our past relatives, parents, uncles, aunties, grandpas. It doesn't matter what happened. We forgive them. And then we always forgive others, the current people we're living with now. The third would be that we forgive ourselves. We will never be perfect. I need to accept that. And then the fourth and last, never, never don't take a chance to apologize when the whisper speaks. When you know that you've done wrong, you know, not just someone saying you've done wrong. When you know you've made a mistake, don't be afraid to apologize. That's Friday.
Sure.
Okay, so
Wow.
so Saturday is really cool too. It's Satisfaction Saturday. No one on their deathbed gets up for a quick little sip of apple juice and goes, "You know what? Man, I wish I would have spent another day at FBC Roofing's office." I, I'm not going to say I want to be here on this podcast with you at my office going to save a
Sure.
hotel roof that just blew off, because that's what I'm going to be doing in a couple hours,
Sure.
right? I'm going to say to my heart, I'm going to weep and say, did I hug my grandkids enough? Did I make those memories?
Yeah.
Did I? And so Satisfaction Saturday is this moment to realize I make money so I can have moments. So in the end of this game, this beautiful rhythm, in the end, when I am gray and old, laying on my deathbed, I have memories, money, moments, memories. Then we move into
Wow.
Sunday. Sunday is amazing. It's called Supplication Sunday. What is supplicating? Well, it's the same as submitting. I'm submitting myself to something greater. What is that greatness? The God of heaven and earth. Okay. I've been in jujitsu for 15 years. I'm just about to be awarded my black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, one of the hardest martial arts there is. And
Wow.
and I can tell you right now, I have tap danced. I've been so tied up I couldn't tap. I've tapped with my foot. I've yelled tap, ow, where I'm
Mm.
fighting for air. My arms twisted. I have a Kimura. I'm in a triangle. I'm in an arm lock. I have a knee bar, right? Thousands of times. What has it done? It's taught me humility. The moment a human falls to their knees and says within their soul, God, I can't do this without you, and they tap,
Tap out.
bam,
Wow.
there's growth, because you're recognizing my God has created this earth. He's giving me all these things. And that is to supplicate, to submit to the Most High God. And then you go do the week again. And so you get on this rhythm. And it's so
Sure.
funny because I go into the coffee shop, and if it's Wednesday, the girls and the guys working there, hey, Fulmer, it's Whisper Wednesday. I wasn't on my cell phone all morning, and I had
Nice.
this great experience. Wow. I've had kids in my company. I instituted this in my roofing company. I had a 35% growth in 2 years. Almost, just incredible.
Sure.
And I had this young man come up to me on a Friday and say, you know, for the first month of living this, it took me to the fourth week,
Mm.
and I couldn't forgive my uncle for something happened when I was younger. And
Sure.
he just comes to me weeping, and I'm holding this young salesman in my arms, like, and he's like, it took 3 Fridays. It took 3 Fridays for me to just, it was eating me alive.
Sure.
And so it's so easy to remember. And so it's not my 4 steps. It's not this, it's our human, superhuman rhythm that God gave us. He gave us Sunday. There was a rhythm, and when God created the earth, there were 7 or 6 days, right? We rested on the
Yep.
seventh. Well, all these different events happen, so there's a different vibration for us as humans. When to be organic. Wednesday, that's that intuition where we let all that like media and all. So that's the real, I would say, the real powerful thing about B7 is you cannot just do it for 4 weeks and no material, and it molds to any culture because everyone's stuck. If you're in Afghanistan or Cabo San Lucas or Italy and it's Wednesday, you have the human, it's for humanity. Like everyone's
Sure.
locked in this thing. And so
Sure.
it's so easy to remember because once you live it for a couple days, it's like, I don't have to go back to those notes from the seminar. I
Yeah.
know what Forgiveness Friday is. That's an
Sure.
easy one. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that
That's
guy just,
fantastic.
anyway. So my thing is how do we create something that once we learn it, you're really a fisher of men. It's not
Sure.
like when Jesus said, "Oh, you know, give us some fish. I can give you fish, but I can teach you to fish." And
Sure.
that's what B7 is. It's not, "Hey, I'm a guru and I'm trying to teach you a couple steps." This is no, 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 no. I
Yeah.
am next to you in this boat. Please be the next violin next to me and let's make music, a symphony.
That's
So
great.
that's
There's so
B7.
much there. Yeah, that's so much there, David.
It's a lot.
Question. Oh, I love it. I love it. There is a question because you're using a term that I'm not familiar with. Probably a lot of the listeners are not familiar with either. And you were talking about internal vibration. And so, from for a layman like me that really never heard that before, how does that kind of how does that gel into B7 for the listener and for me?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm really glad you asked because you talked about entrepreneurs and working on their business, and sometimes they work so hard on the business that they don't work enough on themselves.
Right.
Um, and so when our mind, like let's say someone cuts us off on the freeway, okay, and we have this influx of anger, or we think something bad about a situation or another person,
Okay.
and anxiety levels rise. That's when the molecules in the DNA inside of start vibrating out of stress and creates the cortisol stress hormone, the bad stress. Okay,
Okay.
that stress, what's happening inside is all of the molecules in your body are vibrating in a negative way, and that's what releases that cortisol. It's the
Mm.
same as if you were to play like some gnarly heavy metal band music in a
Yeah.
silo and
Yeah.
you spray water, you know what I'm talking about. And then
Yep.
you play a beautiful symphony and you spray it in a silo water and you freeze them both. As the snowflakes hit the ground, the one with the beautiful organized, relaxing symphony, the snowflakes
Sure.
are completely organized. Well, as the heavy metal, they're all broken up and chaotic. And so all of us as humans are we're just like we are part of the human race. Okay, that's one
Sure.
body. Well, in
Yep.
our singular bodies is that vibration of molecules and DNA, and what controls their dance is what's
Wow.
between our ears. So that's what controls my dance,
Sure.
right? So I have a choice. I'll give you a scenario. Guy cuts me off on the freeway.
Yep.
Okay. Um, and I can flip him. I can let the birdie fly. I can open up the pigeon coop and let the birdie fly.
Yep.
Or or I create the narrative myself and I say, wow, I hope he gets his wife to the ER in time to deliver that little baby.
Yep.
You see, it was that easy. I
Sure.
imagined beauty. I imagine. And so when we get in this rhythm and we control our vibration, What happens is it opens up, gets us off the hamster wheel, gets us out of that 90% doing the same dumb things, and we get
Sure.
into a state of creativity. So that is huge understanding. I need to have good vibration. I need to have a good rhythm. If Bob Marley was here, he would call it a rhythm.
Yeah. Well, it feels like there's so many people that are like saying and thinking, this is out of my control or you did this to me. I mean, people seem to not want to take responsibility for, their actions, like you mentioned, getting cut off on the freeway or take it into the business world. You come into the office and, you have an email or a voicemail that you lost a customer, or you lost a team member. It's so often I run into business owners and entrepreneurs that they try to mask it. Oh, I'm so glad that guy doesn't work here anymore. He was such a mess. Or I'm so glad that customer doesn't that customer was worthless.
Yeah, and
So it
then
feels
imagine and
like we try to do
imagine
that.
their vibration. And I teach
Yeah,
people, imagine him saying, "Wow, Johnny left us. He was a great employee. I hope wherever he goes that we help teach him we help teach him to make the next place he goes even better. We are grateful for
yeah,
the time that he spent here. I lose a
yeah,
customer. Man, I hope that customer finds a good vibe with the next people. This
yeah,
is going to be, there's a reason why I wasn't on this job because
yeah,
something's better. So this is my book and I refer to it a lot and this is once you can say these lines and stuff, but once you say it and think it and through repetition and realize nothing shows up to break us. We have to understand it shows up to make us. So
mm,
once it's like the buffalo in the wilderness, right? When there's a big storm, buffalo are some of the only animals they charge at the storm. So they're able to
mm,
get through it faster.
gotcha.
And we're taught at a young age, oh, run from pain, run from pain, run from
Sure.
confrontation and run from
Yeah,
being authentic. What if someone thinks terribly about you? What if you're not really honest about your feelings? What if someone knows you went to jail? What if, you know what? We need to be authentic. We need to be real. And we stop worrying about consequences and ask ourselves, what am I becoming? Like the saying that's in my office above my head. I don't care how much money I lose. I don't care how much money I make. I don't care what happens on the consequences. I want to ask myself one thing. What am I becoming?
yeah,
Truly, what is the
yeah,
trickle down of this decision? Stop saying, because a lot of people say, oh, you know what? I'm a good guy. I'm not a
yeah.
bank robber. I'm,
Right.
I'm not cheating on my wife. I can go
Yeah.
look at these girls all the time. I mean, I'm not sleeping with them or
Right.
girls saying, I can flirt with these guys. My husband, I'm not cheating on, right? And so we give ourselves this, oh, I'm kind of good instead of saying no. It is what I'm doing truly at the end of this road. Who do I become?
Yeah.
And this is on small little decisions and it's all on these like real micro decisions that make this massive macro freaking economic
Sure.
incredible life.
That's
So
awesome. That's awesome. Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, David, I want to unpack how you transitioned from, owning a roofing company, multiple roofing companies in multiple states to this. So I think the listener is going to enjoy this journey. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm honored to be hanging out with David Ray Fullmer, the founder and developer of B7 or Becoming Seven. You can find this at becoming7.com. And there's a book. What's the name of your book that is out now?
it's becoming seven, the superhuman rhythm.
Awesome. So cool. So you were, as you alluded to before, and you still have your hands in the roofing world for a few more years. A lot of people listening right now probably are like me, where they own their own company and they're just, cruising along, doing the best that they can. How did this kind of B7 piece come into you from that roofing perspective? You were going along doing that. Obviously, you talked about your dad and Stephen Covey. So did that kind of get buried in and then unleashed later in life, or what was the impetus for you to migrate and add this B7 piece into your world outside of the roofing world?
Well, it kind of, I told you about when I was younger, started when I was younger. Well,
Yep.
I moved 27 times by the time I was 17. So
Wow.
my family moved all over. My dad was doing personal development and seminars and sales and all this stuff. And so I developed kind of as a little kid, a little bit different. But then I got in a lot of trouble and I was in youth corrections custody for 4.5 years, where the
Mm.
state took me from my family because I was a surfer kid, grew up in Southern Cal. We were up and down the coast of California. And then I
Yep.
moved to Utah, and it was like total culture shock. And I got in a bunch of
Sure.
trouble. My best friend was a local boy from here in Hawaii, a local Tongan boy, and so we got in a bunch of trouble, and the judge said to my parents, and they said, "Hey, if these people adopt Dave, we can get him out to Hawaii and get him out of Utah." So I came here. Fast forward a couple years, I finally got sober, got off drugs and alcohol, and then bam, my parents get a divorce. My mom kicks my dad out due to some moral failing, and she had 13 kids, and eight were still in home. And so my
Wow.
older brother Joey looked at me and he's like, "You're the oldest that isn't married." So after spending 5 years in group homes and incarcerated, and then now I'm finally in Hawaii, I'm finally sober, then I have to move back to Utah, and for 3 years I lived with my mom while she worked two jobs, sometimes three jobs, and I saw a whole different side of humanity by being by my mom. And then
Sure.
fast forward, I get married, I start an incredible masonry business. Everybody's screaming recession. I'm like, what's that? Recession, we're going to be fine, we're positive thinking. Recession, no. And then like, oh crap, I'm bankrupt. I
Oh
was a
boy.
multimillionaire by 28. I own all these properties. It can't, there's no such thing as I can't. And oh yeah, that's see you later.
Wow.
Gone. Start over. Came really close to having to go out of business in 2016 due to a partner that kind of got kicked out and made some bad decisions, and then just built it back up. So it's been kind of a lot of just sum it up is looking at failures and just never giving up, and going from failure to failure to failure without losing enthusiasm that something's going to get better, because it's like it's that 10,000th decision,
Yeah.
right? You got Edison. It's like that 10,000th decision where bam, 10,001, I see it, bam. And so
Sure.
true success is just going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm is the easiest line. But so
Sure.
through all that is kind of how it developed in me, and it was like I said, it was almost 15 years of going through it. I had a day here, a day there, but it really opened up to me about 4 years where I was like, wow, this is heavy.
So then you end up in the roofing world, and then you realize that there was other things for you to accomplish. So where are you at right now with this? Because obviously you have two things, at least two things going on. How do you like balance those two? Because there's a lot of people listening right now, David, that want to start their own business. And rather than you thinking or they thinking, that they own their own business now, I think of you being in corporate with your roofing situation. And that's where a lot of people are. They want to get out of that and they want to, pursue something different. How did that happen for you? Because your roofing business was taking off. How did this B7 then enter into that?
Well, I am like I was saying, I've been living it for a while, and I kind of instituted it into my own company, and I saw incredible rapid growth at the corporate level, and I was like, wow. And I love personal development; it's my passion. But
Yeah.
if you were to say, hey, if I would have jumped out 5 years ago and go, oh, dude, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, I'm gonna leave my riffing company behind, and I'm just gonna do B7 and burn the boats. There's all these cootie ha
Yeah.
rahs. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, that's not common sense. And so in the evenings and early in the morning, I get up at 5:30 a.m. That's my rhythm, and I
Yeah.
spend from 5:30 to 7:30, 8 o'clock on my morning routine on B7 doing podcasts, and in the evenings I spend another hour because that's my passion, right? That's
Sure.
my passion. And B7 is going to eclipse my roofing in the next 18 months. And
Sure.
but it started 5 years ago of me chipping away. And so if I'm like, okay, I'm in this job, this is my work, right? But then there's my life's work.
Yeah.
And we prioritize, we transition, we're really, really smart. We get to know people in the industry, in the field that we want to launch a business in, but we don't burn the boat until we know that wherever we're at in any market that we're in, that we're able to live off what we kill, right? Because you're like this, this young lioness in the middle of
Sure.
this the desert, and you're like, I'm going to go start my own clan, my own tribe. Well,
Yeah.
you've got to hunt with all these other guys and learn the systems and the processes, and bring the value to the marketplace. And so I always tell people, do it, start a business, let's go. But don't tell me that going home and sitting on Instagram for 5 hours is going to help you do that. Like, let's
Yeah.
be honest with each other. 40% of our
Yeah.
time spent on social media. And so when I'm on social media, someone's going to be on social media and watch this podcast, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay, boom, only 5 to 10% of my arm is that, it's that shot, right? It's
Yep.
that chart. Okay, now let's go after my dreams. Because if we sit and watch and watch and watch and watch, all we're
Yeah.
doing is living vicariously through someone else. We're getting
Sure.
high on their great life. Well, not
Yep.
me. No way. I'm
Yeah.
let's get our list, let's get our things we need to do. And instead of going home and watching TV, I'm going to go home and dream build. I'm going to write down the next task for the day. I'm going to build the infrastructure of my business when I'm not at my work, so that
Sure.
when my life's work starts to come into the purview, and I'm like, okay, I can see now, I can feed the kids, I can feed myself. I'm barely right there. Then we make the transition.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and I can remember a time for me where I was reading like a book a month, and I thought that was really good. And then all of a sudden I looked at a book and I'm like, boy, I read that book, but I couldn't tell you one thing that I learned from that book. And then that's when I realized that I was consuming content just for the whatever,
For
the
sake.
ego part, whatever, just to check it off, whatever it was, right? But it wasn't to actually like, discover anything about myself, improve anything about myself. And so I've really slowed down my consumption. I'm rereading books that I've read before two, three, four times to really get
Yeah.
that sunk in.
And that's
And
tracking Tuesday. That's a principle, tracking Tuesday. How wise are you to literally be honest with yourself? Like, I'm looking in the mirror, Dave, not
yeah,
today. We're gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, for
yep,
you to look at yourself and say, wait a minute, I can go to the party tonight, and I read a book a month. I'm such a G. It's like,
yeah,
okay. And
yeah,
like you said, tell me what all those books were about. Oh, well, I just,
right.
and now you're like, no, 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 no. I'd rather read one chapter and truly take it in and soak it in, understand it, and let it vibrate within me, than to read 5 books and get nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's not a pattern change, if there's not a behavioral modification, if there's nothing that comes out of it, then I had to look back, and it was I really wanted that lapel pin, David, that said book a month club.
Yeah,
And then I'm
exactly.
like, shoot, what the heck good is that? And it was just really a personal like an ego trip that I really had to, face for myself. So I love that piece there. Couple questions before we end today. I'm curious if there's a practical exercise that you can help us with to kind of kickstart this. There's 7 days. Obviously, it's got to be hot. There's a journey there. And, how do you start? Is there a simple starting spot for us that you can help us with today?
Um, and I know a lot of people talk about their why, but I really want, there's a lot to unpack there, but
Yeah,
I would say is a lot of what I've found why people quit. Like, most New Year's resolutions are done by February, the halfway point in February, is because we don't see the results of our hard work. And there's a thing
yeah.
called what I call the law of momentous return. And I don't even know if that's a word, but it is for me. Okay.
Good.
Momentous.
We're creating new words on the show. Good job, David. I love it.
Put in the
That's
dictionary.
awesome.
So what the
Yep.
law of momentous return is, that we are every day taking little 1% better steps to our goals and to what we're doing, and staying on that track. Like, I challenged everybody in the beginning of the year, 100 days up at 5:30 a.m., except for Sunday, every day. And I kept it. but my wife had surgery and I had to fly from Hawaii and I was up all night and then that night. And so there were 2 nights and then there was 4 days I got sick.
Yeah.
So the natural man in me was like, "Oh, you're sick. You have
Yeah.
an excuse." So
Right.
did I get up and do my new morning workout? I didn't have the strength, but I
Sure.
kept the river flowing. I got up at 5:30. I sat up. I recognized my dreams. I meditated, and then I laid back down and went back to sleep because I was sick.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
there's a lot of times we're like, we're going to go to the gym, we're going to work out, but I don't have time today. Well, then I'm
Right.
going to go drive to the gym. I'm going to walk in there, grab two 10-pound dumbbells, do 1 rep in my suit if I have to, and I'm going to leave because it's not that you're not developing yourself. What you're
Yeah.
doing is you're keeping the river flowing. The
Wow.
minute that river dries up, the
Yep.
minute that last drop trickles down that river stream, the
Sure.
new idea comes and now it's a new stream and it's a new direction. And so the law of momentous return, what happens when you just keep that rhythm, you end up, and a lot of times too with this is people, like I wanted to start a restaurant and to franchise a restaurant. I was so
Okay.
set on it. I wrote it down 100 times. Let's start this. So we start this Mexican restaurant, me and my brother. We ended up breaking up and I wanted to franchise it. And I could have said, you know what, screw franchising, screw red, blah, 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 and instead, through that process, it's like you shoot for the moon and you land on Everest. But I just
Yeah.
kept going. And then what happened is I used those skills in the restaurant franchising and I started a roofing franchise. And that
That.
didn't work. I opened
Yeah.
up 8 locations in 5 states, and it was like chasing rabbits in construction. It was like, dude, I can't teach these guys how to be roofers. Are driving me crazy and they're not listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went back and bought all the companies back and shrunk it down to what I could control. The 18 states we do in commercial roofing. And
Sure.
and now I'm like, wow, I could have never from the beginning told you where I would have ended up. But what I
Wow.
can tell you is the law of momentous return. You're going to end up exactly where this universe and God wants you to be. Just
Yeah.
don't get off the path. Don't quit shifting full gears. And if you need to pivot just a little bit, you're going to pivot and take those
Yeah.
strengths that you had. And yeah, so just
Wow.
keeping on.
Well, I tell you, there's so many people. We talk about small course corrections a lot on this show, and there's so many people that want these massive shifts, and people don't realize that like 1%, like you were talking about, 1% today. I always use the analogy, we have a house here in the Midwest and a house on the East Coast or a West Coast. If you leave Milwaukee Airport and you're flying towards San Diego, and 10, 15 minutes into the plane, the guy decides to do a 2% course correction. Nobody on the plane has any clue that it happened. And you end up in LAX, which is a painful drive from LA down to San Diego. There's no fun about it. It's 2.5 hours of 8 lanes, and it's just painful. But yet, at the end, it's a massive difference landing in LA versus San Diego. So I love that course correction of small pieces. Do you feel like you run into a lot of people that want these massive course corrections and you kind of have to retrain their brain a little bit?
Oh, 100%. And another one of those massive things is like people want all the pieces in place before they start. It's
Right.
like, oh, I gotta
What's
have
wrong with that? Hey,
this.
wait a minute. What's wrong with that? Right.
I gotta have I gotta have my org chart all figured out. And if I don't get this loan, it's like
Yeah.
you it's like they wanna jump into this thing called entrepreneurship and superhumanship and be able
Yeah.
to be a leader of their own life, but they fail to just get their boots on and say, let's go. And you say, well, how
Yeah.
are we gonna get there? It's like it's going to reveal itself. It's like you can plan. I can look up at Everest in binoculars and from satellite and say, okay, we're going to go around this west facing crevasse.
Yeah.
And then a storm comes in while you're hiking, and then you still look at it, okay, we're still going to go to the west. Then you get right in front of it. You're like, there's no way. We're going around the set. We're going to go around this other way. We have to go
Yeah.
the other. Why? Because it's right there
Yeah.
in front of my face.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
the way life is. It's like
Yeah.
get on your journey. And that law of momentous return, that law that says, he who walks, he who believes is seeing, he who takes the step forward and says, I'm going to go. And they say, well, how? And I says, I don't fully know, but I've
Sure.
got my backpack. I've got my solids with me. This is
Yeah.
my guy, Jerry, and this is Jack. And they're
Yeah.
good at what they do, and we're going to figure it out along the way. And there's a certain
Yeah.
amount of that in entrepreneurship where you just got to go for it.
Yeah. Wow. And my parents told me, don't just stand there, do something, you know? And it was like, I just like standing there for a minute because I was trying to figure things out. They're like, don't go do something, get started. I think that that momentum, that first step, they always say how hard it is to get a train to actually move. But once it's moving, it's really easy to keep moving because that momentum is there. So I love that piece. One last question, I'm gonna let you go, Dave. What would your tip of the day be for the people listening? It's maybe something we covered already. Maybe it's something on your heart that hasn't gotten out, but what would your tip of the day be today?
Um, because it's Thankful Thursday, I just want anyone that, is watching this to understand how important it is to live with gratitude. I can't tell you enough. I have a dear friend of mine that jumped into a foam pit and was paralyzed from the waist down. And can you imagine, he's 28 years old, has a beautiful career. He's an incredible kid. He's an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. He has all these things going for him, and in a split second, jumped into a foam pit, and now his life's changed forever. And
Wow.
they were coming home from an event, um, and my other friend was pushing him in his wheelchair into his house, and so he's pushing him up the ramp. Well, my friend that was pushing him tripped and completely rolled his ankle really bad. Slapped, hits the floor. His ankle's toast, and he's
Yeah.
sitting there and he's all bent out. He's like, "Oh, I can't believe this!" And he's yelling. And my other buddy in the wheelchair, he looked at him and he laughed. He said, "Hey, it could be worse. You could be in my chair."
Yeah, I'll
And
trade you.
they just both laughed. And
Yeah.
it's like, guys, I'm telling you, there is always something to be grateful for. The gratitude isn't say, "Oh, I'm so grateful." Remember, it's going back to my decision making when my vibration is correct is better.
Sure.
My decision making when I forgive is better. Everything is these little teeny micro decisions, little choices. What am
Yeah.
I becoming? Boom, bam. I have gratitude today. You will see the way. If you have gratitude today, you will see the way. So,
Yeah.
gratitude.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I got in the habit of doing three things I was thankful for every
Yeah.
day. And boy, now a three's not enough. I gotta just keep
It's
going
not,
and
I love, I know, I
and
love
it's
the gratitude journal. It just starts. You're like, wait a minute.
And they're simple little things like hot water, clean water, warm house. I mean, they're simple things like that. The ability to get out of bed, the things. I mean, a guy in a
Yeah.
wheelchair is overly understanding of what the things that are
Yeah.
limiting him. That would, now he's got to come up with a whole new list of things to be thankful for. But again, we all have things to be thankful for. So,
And your
what a great,
little things, like what you said, is
yeah,
so key. Someone might say, "Oh, you're thankful because you have a restroom and clean water."
right?
Hey, let me tell you, you want to go to the top. You want to be a superhuman and run a business that makes millions of dollars so that you can spend time with the ones that love. Man, you better be in tune with those little things,
Yep,
because
yep,
it's the little things that make the big, big, big jumps in life. I'll tell you
yep,
what. No, who was around when Kobe Bryant was waking up at 3:30 and doing two workouts before all of his other, um, competitors? Where there
yep,
was no one around. It was
yep,
dark. I'm telling you
yep,
right now on this earth, there are millions of high level humans that are waking up. There's no one around. There's no one to show. There's no
yep,
flashy object. They're doing the little things. They're waking up and documenting. They're waking up and working out. They're waking up and watching what they eat. They're waking up watching what they think. That little tweak in our brains, let me tell you, that's not a little thing. That's the 1 degree in the plane. That's the
yep.
1 degree of separation from you and greatness,
Yep, that's
power.
awesome. I'm hoping that you, listener, today have identified a new habit that you can get into Check out B7. Where can people get your book, David?
So they can just log on to becoming7.com. That's becoming and then spelt out SEVEN.com. And they can either click the link that's there and purchase the book. We got on hardback, paperback. We've got the audio book. And then I also give it away free digitally. So if they want, yeah. So
Wow, that's awesome. So becoming7.com. Thank you, David, so much for hanging out. I could sit and talk about this all day, but you
I
got a
know
roof to go fix. You got to
I've been
go
on a
fix
lot.
it.
Yeah, I've been on a lot of these podcasts, and man, you and I think are cut from the same cloth because
Oh yeah.
like you got good rhythm, man. You know what you're
Well,
doing. You're a
thank you.
stud.
Thank you so much. Well, it must be the hair difference. If you're not on YouTube, I have hair that's onto my shoulders, and David's kind of still working on that. So
Yeah, well,
he
I think
has.
maybe that I'm a little jelly. I'm a little jelly of your incredible golden locks.
Wouldn't it be funny if I could pull them off and then I was bald? So you look great. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I can't wait to read your book. Can't wait to keep learning from you, and again, appreciate all you're doing in this space.
Okay, brother. Aloha.